Hey everyone, this is Black Gold, and today we'll be going over our PFA 7 battle. We're up against SleepyKnight, and to be honest, this is one of those weird weeks, if you ask me. We're kind of in the already past the middle of the week, we're already starting to enter the last, several weeks of PFA before we go to playoffs. And this is one of those weird matchups that could possibly happen in PFA, given how everyone makes playoffs. They give it the new rule change and whatnot. Well, there's a like that was probably one of the several rule changes that we had throughout the season, just to encourage participation and whatnot. Um, but either way, this matchup is probably one of those weird ones where I think I could battle my opponent round one if they make it into it. But it depends because my opponent here is he does admit that he hasn't played a Pokemon in a while, but he does. But his team, just based off his team, it looks terrifying. So I'm like, yeah, yeah. It's like I I kind of want to believe you, but I don't know. So we just have to take his word for it. So, anyways, his team is Manaphy, Dragonite, Necrozma, Muk, Mega Lopunny, and Shaymin. So you could already see that most of this team is based off of Epic's team, which is kind of funny and hilarious if you think about it. Um, right now for this week, we brought our pretty much a Stealth Rocks Garchomp with Outrage, EQ with Poison Jab, with Yachi Berry. Pretty much the Yachi Berry just for taking hidden power ices or any random ice moves. Because honestly, he has two of the better Pixie base 100 Pokemon across the board. And with Lopunny, sure as hell he's gonna bring something with ice. Yeah, then we have Florges, which is a cleric, like pretty standard. The next power Pokemon we have here is our Volturn Core, or Parting Shot Core if you include Silvally. So, Coco with Specs. It's actually a rash nature with Brave Bird because Shaymin walls the set, Volt Switch, and Dazzle, and then I believe last move is what's the last move? Oh yeah, Brave Bird. Sorry. Oh yeah, and because of this, he has a very huge flying weakness. So in that regard, I have a Hurricane Moltres. So hopefully we hit those Hurricanes because we're gonna need them. So, and thankfully for that reason, we have Toxic and U-Turn. So next we have Bolt Beam, Silvally with Defog and Parting Shot, and lastly, or no, I think it's like Toxic and Parting Shot, and lastly we have Choice Band Scizor with Bolt, like BP U-Turn, Knockoff, and like Defog. So yeah, that's the team. So we'll just go and just go get them. So he leads with the Lopunny as I lead with the Coco. I wanted to lead off with Coco since he has no ground type, and I was like pretty optimistic that he doesn't lead Lopunny or Manaphy, but unfortunately, alas. However, like I have to switch out now, so I'm gonna have to switch into Moltres automatically. So this thing is I believe flame bodies to at least make sure Lopunny gets burnt or something. So we do have leftovers just to recover little by little. So here we go for U-turn, anticipating a possible Manaphy switch in. Because at this point, I feel like the best way to play around this team is just to go with switch with pivot switch in. So I just get a Garchomp for free eventually, and I just get up my rocks. So here I go with a Poison Jab as the Shaymin goes for the Headwind. I do get lucky with the poison, so it is going to get further chipped down. So now, Knight has pretty much has to make a choice whether to stay in with Shaymin because it's going to get worn down with poison damage and possibly threatened by Garchomp, or he just sacks it here. So as you can see, he has leftovers, so it kind of indicates that. Here, I don't want to risk Hidden Power Ice, so I actually go to Scizor. And he goes for Hidden Power, but it is actually Ice, not Fire, so that's the one thing about having this team, is because you have multiple Pokemon with you know, uh, things that like have hidden powers, but it kind of forces like, you know, certain Pokemon to have hidden power fire, hidden power ice, hidden power rock. I mean, this is something that I find less lovely. So at this point, I'm like, all right, I could go for a U-turn here. Here he goes to the Alolan Muk, and I go for U-turn. I get a chunk on this Muk, and I could just go for Earthquake pretty easily since Muk, I don't expect it to be fast. If it was fast Muk, then that could have caught me by surprise, but you know, it is what it is. So here I'm debating whether or not to go for Outrage because while he does have a no Dragon type, um, I do fear that like he has could switch into this Chomp. So at this point I'm like thinking to myself, okay, should I go for Outrage or Earthquake? So because this Manaphy is in within range. So here I go for the Earthquake, and it does a lot. And I do eat this hit thanks to the Yachi Berry. And we're able to two-shot this Manaphy. So he actually switches out into Shaymin. And we're able to get another kill with Garchomp. So this battle is just going pretty well so far with Chomp. However, he goes into Lopunny, and I'm like, oh great, he's gonna get a kill. However, I feel like Chomp is still useful. Just because it still outspeeds everything else, and with Rocky Helmet damage, I might need it for Dragonite, so or not Rocky Helmet, but the Rough Skin. Here he goes for the Fake Out as I go for Moltres, try to get the burn. However, here I make a kind of a mistake, and I kind of make a very risky play, but this is on me by the way. So I go for Toxic as he goes for the return, but as you see, this Lopunny does still a lot more damage than it should. So I'm like thinking to myself, well, I just lost Moltres for no reason. This could have been bad, but as long as we had like Moltres, like Scizor, and we have the Toxic on the Lopunny, it's fine. It's pretty much at this point I'm okay with losing Moltres if I'm able to wear down this Lopunny. So hopefully this may be a roll, but of course it's not. So at this point I go to Scizor, and at this point I'm like, alright, so do I go for BP or U-turn? Because to be honest, he has no way to remove hazards, thankfully speaking. And Dragonite's multi-scale is gonna get broken, so however, like I'm just debating which is like the better play here. Go for BP or U-turn. So I ultimately decide, you know, I'm just gonna go for BP because at the very least this knocks out Lopunny and puts it in toxic range. So, and he goes for HJK and he knocks himself off with toxic, thankfully. So now it comes to Dragonite, and at this point I'm like, okay, as long as he doesn't go for the attack, I should be able to win or against this Dragonite. So he goes for the Dragon Dance as I BP. So now it depends on whether or not he has like Life Orb or Dragon Dance plus Life Orb or some weird Silk Scarf variant or whatever. So because at this point like if he has E-Speed then he out prioritizes me. Aqua Jet does the same thing. So but it's far less. No, I think it's far. I don't know. It's half and half, so it's like 40 base power. So yeah. So either way, I have to go with BP because this Dragonite's gonna go retreading. He does have leftovers, so thankfully he has no offensive items. So I go for the Bullet Punch again, and we live on 3 HP. He goes for E-Speed, and I live on 3 HP, and I just go for Bullet Punch. And at this point, it's pretty much game because Coco could just clean up. So here I go for the Bullet Punch. I was kind of worried that he was like Barry, but I remembered earlier that he's like leftover. So at this point, I just go for Specs Thunderbolt. And honestly, like even if Necrozma lives this, it's a 2-shot, so he would have died. So, and even then, I still have like Dark Steel Valley to close out the game and with Parting Shot. So yeah, that's gonna be the game. So thinking back at it, like there were a couple mistakes I've made such as not roosting with my Moltres versus the Lopunny. But I think it was just it was one of those games where it was kind of a blow for blow. You know, like make trades for this trade. But in this case, we were able to like kind of like prevent him from getting like his offense from going up. Tailwind plus Tail Glow Mammoth could have been really threatening. Same with Necrozma. If it sets up a Calm Mind or just has some weird offensive set. Or even with Dragonite, that's setting up. So Lopunny is always a threat because he could always outspeed my team and just clean. So hence why I brought Scizor. So I didn't have. It's funny I didn't use Florges or did I use Florges? No, and Silvally. Silvally was Silvally Dark, by the way. So just because Necrozma is annoying. But yeah, our Volturn core just pretty much saved us, I guess you could say, especially from Moltres actually was pretty good early on because having that U-turn, being able to like get in like Garchomp was pretty huge, and toxic stuff like the Lopunny. I don't think I could click the Hurricane once, so thankfully there's that. So just have to click toxic, and the Yache Berry on the Garchomp was clutch. So yeah, so GG's to Knight as we improve to a 5-1 record. So our next opponent's actually going to be Raker. So, and honestly, his team this time is a lot more stronger. So hopefully you have a chance to beat it. So anyways, that's all I have for today, and I'll see you guys next time.